Hi everyone, I'm Kieran Taylor.
I'm Martin Welsh.
I'm Emma Murison.
And we are those pension guys. So the whole point of the podcast is to bring some real world, real life influence into your personal finances, how you can win with your finances and how you can have more clarity and how your finances can work for you in the future. But where did the name of the podcast come from? So a lot of our clients very affectionately know us as those pension guys. So for example, when they've been kind enough to refer us to a friend, a colleague or a family member, they've often said, oh, that's Martin and Kieran, those pension guys. You should go and talk to them. And I think it's a name we quite like, don't we? It's a nice term of endearment, I would say.
Yes, it is.
But we thought with it being the first episode, let's have a little bit more of an introduction about ourselves, about the business, and what it is that we actually do. So we've got Emma here today who's going to be the master of ceremonies and do her best to keep us on track as much as she possibly can. So Emma, what are we talking about today?
So we're going to kick off our very first episode with a look at the journey behind Welsh and Taylor Wealth. A look through how you started and the journey that got you to what is currently Welsh and Taylor Wealth.
Magic.
This will be split into two parts. So this is just part one. So you'll need to stay tuned for part two as well. So both of you, when you were in your early 20s, took the leap to go from oil and gas into the financial services industry.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about how you took that leap. What led you to make that choice?
Yeah, it was a big leap that was taken for me. It was back in 2014. The Aberdeen oil and gas industry really went through quite a downturn at that time. The oil price went through the floor, unfortunately. So there were redundancies, there were payoffs, there was restructuring in most companies, most big oil and gas companies in Aberdeen.
Because there's not a point in time the oil price was like $18 a barrel or something. I mean, it was really bad. It was definitely the worst sort of turnover I'd ever seen in the time I was working in the industry as well.
Likewise. I remember a lot of people, like the older generation, saying, even for them, it was one of the worst times they'd ever seen. And that's what really brought me into this, because it reminded you there's cycles. Mm-hmm. And all the older guys that I used to work alongside would say, this always happens every 7 years, every 10 years. There's always a downturn. There's always loads of redundancies, and it will come back eventually. And there was that scary point of, why would I want to be potentially linked to something that's going to go through those sort of ups and downs so often? And it was a career fair I went to, actually. Before I was made redundant, I went to a career fair. There was a St James's Place sign. I seen it. I was a client myself, so I recognised the name, and it had me thinking, I wonder what that's all about. And it said it was an academy. So instantly I thought, well, that mustn't be for me, because I'm working. I'm maybe too old to go to academy again. But I realised then it was for second careerists, for retraining. So I realised that actually there's this big academy that's run by St James's Place that allows you to enter the industry with no experience, train you up to be a qualified advisor, and kind of spit you out the other side, if you like, as a fully qualified advisor. And that was what really got me interested in knowing, well, actually that could allow you to change into an industry that, of course, the markets go up and down, but everyone's always going to need their pension. Everyone's always going to need their money working for them so that they can retire and build wealth.
I had the same mindset, that I remember speaking to recruitment. Wasn't really a friend, I suppose, more just an associate or someone I met at a career fair years ago. And I'd said to Craig, listen, just get me something in finance. Because I felt the same way as you. Yeah. I felt the oil industry really, although I enjoyed the industry, it really chewed me up and spat me out. So I wanted something that I felt would give me more continuity. Now, the only thing I had in my head was finance. Get me something in finance. Didn't know what that was, and that he had mentioned a similar thing. We've got an open evening for an academy to be a financial advisor. Now, nobody in my family had a financial advisor. I didn't know anything about the industry. I didn't know who St James's Place were, but just went along to think, well, okay, I'll give this a go. And I remember coming away from the evening thinking, all this job really is learning something about someone, trying to deliver value, trying to help them, and doing it over the long term. And I thought, yeah, that sounds like a bit of me. I think I could do this. And then fast forward, here we are. But what about you, Emma? How did you get into the industry?
Well, I had gone to university, but I'd ended up dropping out. It was biomedicine that I was studying. So I was kind of too old to go into like an apprenticeship,
right,
but too young to go, or didn't get my degree, so couldn't get into like a graduate scheme.
Yeah.
And at the time, Aberdeen Asset, they had this huge office in the middle of town, and they were running what was called an Investment 2020 scheme, which was pretty much they had their apprentice scheme, they had their graduate scheme, and for people in the middle like me, that's who this was aimed at. So I joined there as a trainee performance analyst. Loved the job. It was great, but they kept giving me 12-month contracts, and I really wanted something permanent.
Right.
So I had a pal that worked on a summer placement at St James's Place, and put in a good word for me, and I managed to get an interview, and started working there.
Good. And I suppose it's probably worth us going back a step as well, isn't it, Martin? Because when you and I came out the academy, we got our level 4 diploma, the bit of paper, you get to start doing the job. So how did you find it from day one?
The scary part began, didn't it? It was really easy. Not easy, it was intense, but it was easy because you were classroom-based training for 6 months. Yeah. So that was probably the easy bit. You're stuck in a classroom, which wasn't so much fun by the end of it, going through all your exams. But it was when you got spat out at the other side, ready to go and sit down with clients, and you'd never officially sat in front of a client before. You'd done role plays, you obviously done all that, but you had never ever sat in front of a client and done a fact find, given advice. And I always remember thinking, like, what do I do now? So I remember day one, I had my laptop, I had a new computer screen, I had a few things I wanted to set up on the desk, I had a desk allocated in the Aberdeen office. So you kind of rock up, but you're self-employed, you're your own boss. So there was nobody from HR there to welcome you and, put their arm around you and say, right, come and sit here, sort of thing. It was very much up to yourself. So there's loads of good and bad that comes with that, because it'd be really easy to do nothing. It'd be really easy to be scared to go out there and speak to people. But you just had to get immersed in it. But I do remember just thinking there was that very exciting but slightly scary feeling at the time. And I imagine, it wouldn't have been too dissimilar for yourself.
Yeah, I always coin it as you rock up on the first day with no clients, no staff, and no clue. You kind of just look and think, right, what do I do now? And I suppose the only thing we could do was really sort of, I'll use the term, tap up the people that we had in our network before. Obviously, we both worked in oil and gas, but I think you and I both had the same idea that we sort of niched down a little bit, didn't we? That because we knew the industry and we knew how it worked, we knew the problems people had, we knew the financial issues and worries that they had. So I think we thought, let's put our expertise there, let's try and help that demographic of people, and slowly but surely start getting more clients. And the training's the training, but truth being told, you learn to do the job by doing the job. You're in real life cases with real life people. And the more meetings that you have, I think the more skilled you get over time. It'd be fantastic if you just sat the 6 exams and you would know everything. But truth being told, you don't.
I would definitely agree. I remember thinking it was probably in the first 3-6 months. I remember somehow getting an inquiry from somebody with a good bit of wealth, but I was still fairly wet behind the ears. Yeah. And I remember in the meeting, there was a few things that I got put on the spot with, challenging about lifetime allowance or something a bit more complicated that wasn't just right at the top of my head. And it was one of those, I'm very good at passing the exam and studying it when you take time. You've got your calculator, you can do things, but in the moment, you want to make it look like you know what you're talking about. And I'll always look back on that. I remember like a year later having a similar meeting with a similar client, and it flowed so much better because you've got all that experience behind you. So you're right, there's not really any way to fast track that other than just getting in front of clients.
How did you stay motivated kind of in those times where you don't have many clients, you have the piece of paper, but you're only figuring out what you're doing?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I remember you're self-employed. My wife now, but at the time, my partner was made redundant, so there was no income coming into the household. It was all on me, and if you didn't see a client, you didn't get paid. So obviously there was the motivation to live and pay your bills. But on the flip side of that, I'll laugh every summer when there's a really nice day. I remember in those early days, I'd choose to wash my car because it was a nice morning. I choose to cut my grass at lunchtime because it's a nice day. And before I knew it, I didn't leave the house. I answered some emails, I'd done some work from home, but really I could have delivered so much more, but I took advantage of that nice weather. So, but you've got to do that. It was intense 6 months down in Edinburgh going through the training. So I remember trying to enjoy a little bit of that, but very quickly snap back to reality to say, right, you've got bills to pay, you've got to get out there. And it's one of those, you just need to get busy, and you'll remember that too, won't you?
No, totally. And it's funny to remember, it was maybe the week before we were all about to go live. So our cohort was, I want to say 21 people, something like that. And we were all sitting the week before having lunch, and it was, going live next week. So have you got lined up? And you were speaking to people. I mean, one of the guys I was on the academy with, he had his own £1 million final salary pension to transfer. So he was fine for the first year. He would be okay. There was others, I remember, that her husband was an accountant, so it was a case of they were going to hopefully have a cross-referral agreement. And you did sit back and think for a second, oof,
Starting to worry.
yeah, I've not got that. I'm going to have to hit the ground running and make that happen. But I knew it was down to me. But I remember that day the conversation changed and it started to become a bit more negative. And people said, so what are you guys going to do if this doesn't work out? So basically, what was your plan B? And other people were talking about loads of things. I never had one. Guy had it in my head. Well, I need to make this work. There is no plan B. I'm putting my heart and soul into this. I will make this happen. If it takes me a year, if it takes me a lifetime, it doesn't matter. I've said this is what I'm going to do. I put my mind to this. And I'm going to make it happen. And here I am with you fine people a good few years later.
Thank God
something
you
must
did.
have turned out all right. Yeah, exactly.
So for both of you, so as I said, I had joined a practice. That's how I got into the industry, and that was where I met the two of you as well. So what led you to go, each of you separately, from being sole traders to thinking about maybe joining a practice? Obviously, it comes with a lot more support rather than just sort of flailing around on your own,
Yeah, it does. I mean, you joined the practice first, Martin, so maybe you're better taking that from a starter point.
Yeah, sure. And it's a funny one because everyone wants to be their own boss, or I did anyway. Maybe not everyone, but I wanted to be. I loved the idea. You're answerable to nobody. You're in control. You're in full control. Not that you can do what you want, but you can do what you want when you want, for all the right outcomes, of course. But I remember just, that there's only so much you can do when you're on your own. So, within my first year, built up 40, 50 new clients, which was brilliant.
That's good. Really good.
So I remember, being really
the
happy.
Golden child, aren't you?
The poster boy of the academy.
I've got a story about this when you're done. Yeah,
I do remember that. But no, so that was great. But there's a point you get to where you can only write so many reports, phone so many clients, attend events, go to meetings, give advice. So trying to do everything at once, it was really difficult, and it was quite limited in the capacity. So that's where the ultimate goal was to build a business, was to hire people and have all the right people doing the right things, and allowing the likes of myself as an advisor to spend time in front of clients doing the bit I enjoy and the bit I can add the most value. But to almost leapfrog that was the idea that, well, if I joined another practice that had all that set up already, would I benefit and would I progress forward more quickly? So when that decision was made, I seen that they had the back office team. They had people dedicated to doing the report writing, to doing the research, to chasing information, to booking in client reviews. The meeting pack prep, I'll always remember, looking around me in the Aberdeen office, everyone that had staff at the time, they would arrive in every morning, the meeting packs would be on their desk ready for their day ahead. I didn't have that. I was doing it at night, the night before at home and printing out, or doing it the day before, or scrambling to do it in the morning if I had been busy. So it was the idea that joining another practice that just had a few of these things in place would allow me to leapfrog ahead of where I would have naturally got to within that.
I think we both knew as well that we were wet behind the ears, to use your phrase. And I think we're both big enough to know we don't have all the answers.
Yes.
So the idea if you could work in a practice where there were people that had different skills that you didn't have, people that just been advising longer as well, it was what would you pick up along the way. But I think we both had in our heads as well that if you had more time to see clients, to prospect and remove the other parts of the job that, with the greatest respect, I don't think either of us really enjoyed, how much more would you be able to do for your clients, but also what bigger book would you have of your clients to own service?
Yeah. And it was what we were always told. I remember in the academy, they did take in more experienced advisors, successful partners of SJP. And time again, they always said the same thing. Get yourself staff, get somebody in your team, build your business, because you need to be doing the bit you're good at doing. Some of them seen it as a motivation because, a bit like me when I was self-employed, if there was no income and bills need paid, well, as soon as you hire somebody, they need paid before you. So that motivates you even more. Not that I feel that either of us ever need that motivation, because we're already motivated people.
And how did you find it coming into the practice? Obviously, Emma, this was your first experience of kind of personal financial advice. We say that's fair to say.
Yeah. So, I mean, one thing that hit me immediately that I really liked about it was, I'd come from a big corporate company where, if you had a good idea, nobody cared. I was like 19 or something like that at the time, so nobody was interested. But even if it was the best idea in the world, it would have to go through this person and that person, the next, just for them to say no. Yeah. But working in a small company, I can't remember how many of us there would have been at the time.
I can't remember either.
Less than 10 anyway, must have been.
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. And the feeling of like, oh, maybe we should do it this way. And people are just like, okay. I'm like, amazing. Feel like you can really make an impact. That was the first thing that hit me of like, oh, I can actually like really bring something here. So yeah, I think that was a big thing for me.
I remember as well when you'd first joined the practice. I can't even remember what your first role was, if I'm honest with you.
Just like administrator or something.
But I remember in like 2 months you were doing the finances and proper MI planning. But of course, that was what you were really good at. That was a unique skill you could bring in from a role that nobody else had. And you could see a difference. I remember the reports and things we would see from the business were way more after Emma came on board. It was much more detailed, wasn't it?
The spreadsheet queen, as we call
I
it.
love a spreadsheet.
And never changed.
No,
as well.
still love it to this day. I get it from my dad.
So I suppose as well, when we were thinking about that then, can you think, Martin, when we sort of had that drive again or that will to go and start a business of our own? I say again, you know what, I'll take that back. Would you say it's fair to say when we first started, we were self-employed, we didn't run a business?
That's right, yeah. We probably failed to mention that we were still, although we joined in our practice, we're still self-employed.
Yeah.
So still answerable in one way or another, but still technically self-employed. So we never ever lost that wanting to be a bit of a business or that entrepreneurial
Well, you still
spirit.
had to go out and get your own clients.
Well, that's it, yeah. So that's an important
do
point.
networking and that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
so we never lost that. The bit that we did lose was the final decision making, the running of the team, the run of the business. That's the bit we missed out on by going self-employed. And there was never an agreement at that point that we would buy in, take over, do anything in the business or leave the business. It was very open-ended of here's all the options, here's everything that it could become. We went in, got settled for a year or so, and that was the realization. I think, for ourselves, we're always looking, and I'd put Emma in this camp as well, the three of us, we're always looking at how can we do something better, how can we be more efficient, how can we make it a better outcome for a client. And there was occasionally at times you weren't able to completely impact and make changes in the business. So I remember, there would be 101 reasons for it, but the idea of launching our own business, given the experience that we now have behind us, just made the most sense. And I think, if I remember rightly, Kieran, we were out, I can't remember what the occasion was, but we were out in town, and I'm pretty sure we were literally standing with a pint and just got to that point when we're just chatting about things we would change, what we wanted to impact and do. Yeah. And we kind of just looked at each other in that moment and thought, we need to do this.
Yeah, there was a couple of different bits for me. I think I'm the same as you, that although we were self-employed and joined a practice, I don't ever think we lost that will to want to run a business again one day. In what guise, I don't know, but I don't think we had ever really lost that.
No.
I think, again, being honest, I think over time I felt our relationship within the practice, we became slightly ostracized for a lot of different reasons. I think one of the main ones is that we did want to influence things going forward in terms of have our say and make changes that we thought could impact the business in a good way. Even to how you would treat one another. I mean, Emma, you and I had a couple of conversations about things offline, and it was often either process driven, so in terms of we should be doing this in the business because this would improve things, it would improve the client experience, or just how others were being treated in the business, and you'd think, would you have dealt with it like that, or would you have spoke to that person that way? Would you have dealt with that client that way? And you just think when your values no longer align,
totally,
you put yourself in a difficult spot, don't you?
And I think that was really what sort of brought us together, was that the three of us, our values did align so much that it was kind of obvious. We were very much sort of what's the word, aligned towards each other.
Sort of gravitate.
That's it. Gravitate towards each other. You could kind of see in the other person's mind what they're thinking, and whatever happens, and you think, oh, here we go. So I think that was really what brought us together.
And I think where our skills worked quite well was that Martin's an engineer, still thinks like an engineer, likes to know the details, nooks and crannies and things. To be honest, Emma's not too far off of that either. I think maybe you were an engineer in a previous life, to be honest with you. I'm probably more a big picture guy and more of a vision thing to say, well, this is the point that we need to get to. And you guys were great at looking at things, say, okay, that's great, Kieran, but how do we navigate the little details? How do we make that a reality? How do we get from A to B?
That's it. We all balanced each other out so well, that it just became obvious that we could do this with your skill set and your skill set and my skill set all balancing each other out.
Yeah, totally.
So this is harking back then. So how did we really start then? How did we start the process of
I was,
going on and on
I was
again.
trying to remember that. Like, at what point? Obviously, you weren't there when we had that pint
No.
and thought, "Wait a minute, we need to do something." But very
But
soon after,
I
we
was
chatted
there
to you
another
about it.
time, also out for a drink, and
It's a theme here.
yeah, and you. I don't think you said, "Oh, we're going to do this," but we were sort of just hinting like, "Oh, we should just go on our own," like, jokey.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
And then kind of the more you're saying it jokily, the more you're thinking like, why is it a joke?
Yeah.
Like why couldn't we?
Yeah.
You know?
I think I've still got a note in my phone somewhere. I think I just did a massive pros and cons list one night, and the pros of going on our own far outweighed any of the cons. And I think it was that moment of, okay, well, you have to find a way to make that reality. But you have to do a hell of a lot, don't you? I mean, you have to think of, well, what's the mechanism? How are you going to do that?
Yeah.
The kind of insidious side of our business is the only way that you can leave a firm 9 out of 10 times is you have to buy yourself out. So there's obviously the financial impact that's a part of that. There's lots of things to weigh up, isn't there? But I'm glad we took the
You're
time to do
both
that.
very young as well at the time, to be making such big decisions.
Yeah. Because what would have been late 20s
I would
at
say
that point?
it must have been.
If that, yeah. So, big decisions
financial
to make,
decisions
huge
too,
financial sort of commitments to go into as well. But it's a bit like what we'll talk through all the time with our business. As soon as you uncover something, you're not willing to let it go. If you know that you can do something better, then that's what you're going to hone in on. That's what we focus on. That's what I think 3 of us are amazing at, because as soon as we see the vision, we make it the reality. And I do remember, it was easy to talk about, we should do this, we should do that, or let's do this. But when reality came in, it was like, right, we actually do want to do this.
I've been talking a big game. We better pull this off.
Even from the mechanisms around, being within St. James's Place. So you were in a practice already, you wanted to go on your own. SJP had to allow that to happen and be involved in the process.
Yeah.
Obviously the deal to move, the financials behind that, speaking to our clients to make sure that all of our clients were happy that we were moving to become a new practice, and that they would come with us, of course.
I think that's the most important bit. It's a test. It's a test of the client advisor relationship for them to feel, okay, do I entrust you not just now to be my advisor, but also to run a business and be my advisor?
Yes.
And we're so fortunate, aren't they, that every client did want to move along with us. And that was that kind of gratifying feeling of, okay, we've started the foundations of a really good client relationship here. And thankfully over the years, that's only got better.
It has, and it was really exciting. I'm kind of thinking back in the moment now. There was the 4 of us that went together to launch Welsh and Taylor when we decided to move on and still be within St. James's Place. And it was really exciting. We had our own room, we had the desk set up, we ordered monitors, we got a printer, like all the really basic, silly things, really looking back on it. But in the moment, that was a really exciting time. Like, who's sitting where? Who wants the window seat? If I remember rightly, the girls won that. If I remember,
that sounds about right. Yeah, that sounds right.
We didn't. We were second option to that. But it was really exciting. Our branding, coming up with logos, coming up with wording, the website. There was loads of exciting things about that.
You know what? You get the crude side of starting up a small business. Do you remember how we first paid Emma and Maddie?
That was from our own personal bank account.
Bank
Yes.
transfers, because we're still setting up a company account and registered on company's house, because we had you guys doing some work before we officially launched,
just
didn't
a
we?
couple of weeks, I think. Yeah,
but it's all and that's the kind of that's the unromantic side I think people see of starting a small business. That in the early days, you
came round
to
your house to sign my contract.
That's right. Yeah, you came into the house, signed your contract.
We didn't have the shirt though. We didn't have
No,
the transfer deadline day. That's a shame. That'd have been a good photo op.
Is that maybe when I got Lab Hugo, if I remember rightly?
It was.
He was
I met
probably
Hugo
still up.
for the first time.
Yeah, I remember that.
It is amazing that, and probably the elephant in the room. Whose idea was it to start a business in 2020, the year of COVID?
I'm taking no blame.
Who signed that off? But no,
one of us. We are to blame.
Yeah, and I remember we started in January, and even that was a bit disruptive, because remember, you had to get all the client plans to transfer over, all the information wasn't in there. There was some of the regulatory bits to do. Again, it was the kind of...
And people had been busy from Christmas.
Well,
Nobody
exactly.
was wanting to deal with you.
Yeah.
It was even a really silly blackout period, although we were still part of
that's
SJP.
right.
They had different codes. Because your code changed, you couldn't see your old clients, but some didn't move over correctly. And everyone was just getting back to it, weren't they, in January?
Again, it's that ugly thing of you just have to make it work in the early few weeks. And we get to February, and it's like, right, we're getting a go of this. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
And you went in your stagger, didn't you?
In fact, no, that was March stag do. That's
Yeah,
right.
we were in Tenerife. Yeah, that was right, on my stag do.
That was a week of my life I'll never get back. Recovering from that either. That was a week gone. But never mind. Wanted to be in a dark room alone.
The headaches were for multiple reasons, and one of them was because the markets were falling through the floor.
Oh, God,
I remember
yeah.
the phones ringing.
So we've got a story on this one actually. So obviously it was Martin's stag do. We need to do things to keep him happy. So Martin likes his cars, likes a bit of racing. So I thought, right, that's great. We'll do a wee go-karting day. I've never been so hungover in all my life. I remember thinking, you know what? Nah, I'm not doing this. So I was sitting up in the balcony watching them go around. But this was the day you and Maddie were taking these phone calls from clients wondering what's happened. The world's just shut down, went into lockdown. And I'm sitting there taking the call thinking, I'm not enjoying this. For many reasons, I'm not enjoying this.
But you still took the call?
If I remember rightly,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
even volunteered to phone one or two of my clients.
That's right,
back.
yeah. That's right.
So I was too busy getting the first place at the go-kart centre.
Get that award. But you're right. And you know what? As an advisor, that's what you sign up for.
Yeah.
You need to be there in the good times, but you need to be there in the bad times as well. And I think you probably add more value
You do.
being there in the bad times. And you're right, Emma. We'll take the call. You know, that's the trusted relationship we've got, that we're here for that, and we're here for the tricky times as well.
Because you're right, I remember we got back, literally landed in Aberdeen, I think Spain, because we're in Tenerife, went into lockdown
Next day,
that next day.
You weren't sure if you were going to get home.
We didn't even know yet. But
And
I
we were
think
thinking, please.
yeah, oh no, we're stuck. But then I remember, was it maybe like a week or two before the UK lockdown?
Yeah.
But there was the debate of us not being able to go back to the office because we had just travelled, and then it was a way to be locked down, so you had to go into the office to get what you needed out of it. And we were pretty much a new business at that point as well. So like you say, the client relationship is key. So it was all clients we were already dealing with, we had a relationship with already. That gave us an amazing chance in the business. And Emma, you'll remember, like it really allowed us to like very quickly adapt processes, make things more appropriate for clients.
Well, the good thing was we had a lot of ideas of what we wanted to implement already, you know, and a lot of that was like technology-based stuff, which aligned perfectly with COVID, you know, and then we were able to really quickly adapt to introduce Zoom and Teams and that sort of thing. And
DocuSign.
DocuSign,
that was a
that's
big
right.
thing,
That was
yeah.
huge, wasn't it? And, you know, one of the great things was because it was COVID, because everyone's sat in their house in their pajamas, nobody's got anything better to do than take a call, you know, and have a meeting with you guys.
You're right. I mean, selfishly as an advisor, it was actually a good time to prospect, and it was amazing how many clients even got in touch with me to say, I know I've kind of been fobbing you off for the last few months, Kieran, but this is the third day in the row I'm going to be in my jammies, so actually let's speak about my pension. So oddly, it did breed some good business opportunities, didn't it?
It did, and I think it allowed us to show very quickly, we're on it, we'll get back to them, and we're not afraid of those difficult conversations.
So yeah.
Because from hearing from some clients that maybe had dealt with others in the past, they kind of got the feeling that maybe people were holding off even phoning them back because they didn't know what to
just
say.
went AWOL,
yeah.
yeah.
And that's something that we've always been good at. You just take it straight on, make sure the client's happy, and you know you don't shy away from that difficult conversation.
Definitely. And I think everything we did, and you touched on it there, Emma, that made things more visual, I think, because we understood that for all your meetings at that point in time were on either Teams or Zoom. Now, yes, you could send them this massive regulatory document that's 50 pages and go through line by line, but who wants to do that? So we gave them that document. We said, well, actually, we put it in a more visual format. Here's your financial plan. This is what we want to do. And I think clients really bought into that, so much so we still use that same format today, don't we?
It was great, and it was nice when the sort of the restrictions lifted. We chose to move office in that period instead of going back into the SJP Aberdeen office. So we were able to really take advantage. There was a lot of things that we benefited from in the nicest way possible from a process and running the business side of things because of COVID. And that pushed us into thinking, well, why do we not want to, you know, go and get our own office, have a TV screen on the wall? Because at that time, there wasn't even TV screens on the wall in the meeting rooms. So if we were used to preparing for meetings, it was going to be delivered in the same way. If it was on a screen or if it was on a big telly on the wall, you were doing a Zoom and a face-to-face client meeting with the exact same prep, the exact same materials, and it was consistency for clients. Because sometimes a client will say, oh, can I just jump on at lunchtime? I'm not going to drive in. Or, oh, no, I'm in the office, I'll pop in past at 4. I'd like to see you face-to-face.
Yeah.
So it was nice that we took advantage and made that the norm.
I think the whole industry, sorry, Emma, I think the whole industry has actually benefited from this, that being and allowing things to be more remote, in my opinion, over the course of a year, a client actually gets more access to their advisor.
Yes.
I mean, previously, if you remember when we first started out, it was the kind of running norm was just you got one meeting a year and that was it. So from an advisor perspective, it could be difficult because it could be at 7:30 on a Wednesday night somewhere where the client's not really, their head's not in it, they're not in the game, they've had a shit day at work, whatever that might look like, and you felt that, did anyone really get value out of that?
Yeah.
Whereas I think now for a client, particularly busy clients that we've got, it's been great to say, well, actually, can it be great to come in for a meeting, but actually, I've got a question about this. Can we jump on Zoom for half an hour, or can I have a quick call for 15 minutes? I think they get more out of the relationship now.
Totally.
Leverage technology to make the whole experience better. It's not to say that all remote is brilliant or all face-to-face is better. I actually think a blend of both probably yields better results for clients.
Yeah.
Because I think we really expected, once the restrictions lifted, it'll just kind of go back. Most clients will want to just come in again, but really surprised me that majorities were still happy with Zoom and everything. Don't get me wrong, we still have clients coming in all the time, but definitely agree. It makes it a lot more accessible.
Yeah. And I can say some of the really great client relationships I've got, technically I've never had a face-to-face meeting with them, but we've had multiple calls, we've had multiple Zoom teams. It's what you get out of those conversations and speaking as an advisor, what people are willing to share with you to allow you to build the best financial plan for them possible. So it's amazing how we can use and leverage technology now.
Yeah, totally.
But you are Mr. Metrics, Martin. So since 2020, how would you say the business has grown between now and then?
Yeah, so it's really exciting when you look at it. When you look at the figures and you think, right, back in 2020, we brought across our existing clients. So from the clients that we started with, we were looking after around about £30 million of assets at that period in time. And looking up to, the tail end of 2024 when the year end came. So pretty much a 5 year, just short of 5 complete years of running the business. And we finished with about £150 million of clients' assets. So in that 5 years, growing at more than 30% per year on average, which is an incredible growth journey.
Yeah.
So it's really humbling to look back and think, wow, that's a lot. Hundreds of new clients, obviously all that wealth that we're looking after for our clients that they trust us with, that means a lot. But even the metrics of the team, doubling the back office, looking at advisor, taking an advisor from out of industry, putting them through the academy that we went through our very selves. That was kind of your bag that you guided leave you through with that, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right as well. I mean, one of the things we wanted to do was help other people benefit, that there's some great potential financial advisors out there. They just don't know it.
Yeah.
So being able to take from someone that's out with, to have that experience, to leverage the skills that they've got, but bring it to the financial advice space has been brilliant. And Levy's been a fantastic addition. He's been great. He's just got stuck in. And it's something I think we want to do more going forward, isn't it? Maybe take some people that have been out of experience and train them not just to be a financial advisor, but be a financial advisor the Welsh and Taylor way.
Yeah, no bad habits. They get to just embed themselves on day one exactly the way that we've built our business.
And even bringing it back to yourself, Em. I mean, you started a bit in the business as a coordinator and you're now the operations manager. And I think it gives you a unique perspective because you've seen the business from its very, very, very infancy to where it is now.
Yeah, definitely. I think in terms of like back office, it's been so helpful having sort of worked my way up because I really understand exactly all that's involved in documents or what all the different jobs that we have in back office. Certainly keeps us busy, you two, or you three.
Yeah, I think it's been good too that you've designed a lot of the processes, but also tweaked them along the way. I think you're big enough to know when something might have sounded like a good idea and then it's been in practice of, okay, that didn't quite work, we need to change this and this. As it came up in a podcast I was on yesterday, when I mentioned that there's a real thing in life behind people that are solution builders. So you get people that will tell you what the problems are, or you get people that tell you what the problems are and also give you the solution as well. And those are the people I think you really need, particularly in a growing business and a small business. Yeah. We've always kept that attitude, haven't we, of just, we'll make it happen.
Well, that's the thing, because we've grown, at such a fast pace, things do change. Events obviously like COVID force you to change, but just growth itself will force you to change. You need more support, more resource, different processes. Things might take longer or shorter, and you need to just switch things up. Yeah. I think that's one thing we've been really quick with always, is if there's a better way we can do it, then start doing it now.
Yeah.
And in fact, that might lead us nicely to close, because in our next podcast, we're going to be speaking about our move from being what we were as a restricted advice firm to an independent advice firm. But there's a hell of a lot to cover in that, isn't there? So that maybe deserves an episode of its own. But Martin, thank you. Emma, thank you. And folks, we will see you next time, where you'll find out much more about how we became an independent financial advice firm. Thank you.